Well, hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Susan Solovic. Welcome to the 1% Edge webcast series powered by GenieCast. I know we're doing this a week late. Hurricane Irma prevented us from doing it last week, so I hope that wasn't an imposition for any of your calendars. And I'm excited that you joined me today because this is the program that I have designed to help you build innovation into your company's DNA. And today we're going to be talking about the customer edge, which is so critical to find those special enhancements, those special tweaks that make your business really soar to success. And what's really great about this on Facebook Live, you can actually send in some questions and we can talk a little bit about how that works.
Sure. Thank you, Susan. So yeah, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So I'm going to give you guys control of your own mics for the people that are in the two-way call. So whenever you want to ask a question to Susan, simply just click the microphone icon on the bottom left to unmute yourself. And if you're on Facebook, throw those comments in on the comment box, and we'll do our best to read those to Susan. Susan, I will throw it back to you.
All right. Thanks, Brad. Yeah, this is really all about you, so I want to make it as interactive as possible. And before we get started, I also want to thank our sponsors, the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council. If you're not familiar with them, go to sbecouncil.org. They do great advocacy work for small businesses on Capitol Hill. Also, the American Management Association and my publisher, Amacom, for sponsoring these programs. So just to very quickly review for those of you who haven't joined us in previous, the step one is actually to step back, to think, reflect. I call it mindful thinking. Think about your organization. You really have to get away from everything, and you have to be willing to question absolutely everything you're doing in your business. You have to lift your head up and you have to look around. What changes do you see on the horizon that could really affect your business? Are there new competitors? Is there new legislation? Is there new technology? There can't be any sacred cows here. This is where you ask the really tough, very tough questions. Then step two, you actually begin to prioritize what opportunities and business risk you see and how you're going to handle them to grow your organization. You remember, you can't do it all. And my suggestion always is to pick the most obvious ones, the ones that are going to bring the most bang for your buck, so to speak. Put them in order from the easiest to the most difficult. Then draw a line and focus on those top priorities. Those may shift and change as you continue to innovate in your business, but certainly it's going to give you a way to start to focus. Step three is to begin to cut the dead weight. You have to identify your unaffordable business lines. You have to deal with those unengaged employees. A warm body in a seat isn't the right answer. You want engaged employees with a lot of initiative, ready to race and help you build your business. You have to unload outdated methodologies, and you have to really embrace cutting edge options. Step four is to create your action plan and execute. The old saying is, ideas without action mean nothing. And to remember to include the assumptions that caused you to make that plan so that you can easily measure down the road. Step five is then to review and measure, right? But you really need to do this in real time. The strategic plan, the old 5-year strategic plan, that is yesterday's news. This is about making real-time decisions so you can adjust your business accordingly. And that's exactly what you do at this step. You look at what your assumptions were, you look at the direction you're going, and do you want to stay the course? Is it working? Do you need to tweak it just a little bit? Or do you need to abandon it completely? In this environment, you don't want to make the mistake to dig your heels in, and just because it was your great idea. You don't want to get married to any product or service or any type of business mode or operations. You have to be willing to change. And step six, it's really pretty easy. You just start this process all over again. You start at the top. So it's not a one-time exercise. This is an ongoing program that allows you to keep building innovation. If you're standing still, guess what? You're going backwards. Now, I can't take credit for this, but I spoke at an event with the founder of Quicken Loans. And he had a book that he's published, just some of his philosophies. And he had two pictures of people. One was the status quo guy, and the other is the status grow guy. You want your business to be in the status grow category. So how does that all then apply to your customers and your customer experience? Well, we all know that customers can make or break our business, right? Did you ever watch that popular program, Mad Men? That really handsome guy, John Hamm, who played the character of Don Draper, the great advertising executive. He said once that as soon as you sign a client, that's the day you start losing them. And if you think about it, that's got a lot of reality to it, because we tend in our businesses to bring in new business. That's what it's all about. We've got to get more business, more business, more business. And as you're focused on getting new business, what happens to the folks that you already have there? Are they just about ready to go out the door? So let's think about that step one, where I said that you should be asking the right questions. If anybody wants to type in or pop in and say, here's my suggestion, you're welcome to do that. But let me give you a few questions to start asking yourself. Are we actually giving in our business the marketplace a reason to change its buying habits? In other words, are you really truly delivering value to your customers, or are you just simply kind of sitting back and buying your own marketing spin? Believe me, it's easily done. There are a lot of corporate executives who really can't even state what their real value proposition is to their customers, other than what their marketing department gives them on a piece of paper. Are you using the right tools and resources to work smarter, not harder, and deliver that exceptional customer experience? Are you constantly looking for ways to be better and better and better, never resting on your laurels? You're probably familiar with the book Good to Great. Jim Collins says, good is the enemy of great. You can't be good enough. That simply isn't going to make it today, because somebody's going to be out there willing to do it just a little bit better than you. And do you have an empowered team? Or are they just showing up and putting up? Or are they really, really, really focused on your customers and providing that amazing customer experience? Are you, as a company, as a team, if you have one person, or if you have 100 people or 500 people in your organization, are you truly open to change in order to deliver those amazing experiences to your customers? Or are you stuck in your ways? And do you have a strong company culture that really makes it clear to your employees and your customers that their value, their service, their experience really, really, really comes first, and you live up to that promise? So here's the thing that's kind of scary. Do you know 79% of customers will take their business somewhere else within a week if they've had a bad customer experience? So by staying on top of the game and really identifying the gaps in your process when it comes to customer experience, that's what's going to give you the edge. Now, I was on Fox Business Network one time with Jerry Willis, and there was a report that came out which was all about the worst companies with the worst customer service. So I did a little research before I went on the air, and you wouldn't believe it. These companies were all saying what excellent customer service that they deliver and how they put the customer first. It was marketing spin. There was a disconnect between what their marketing department was saying, and perhaps even their leadership, and what was happening on the front lines. That's where you've got to start to fix your process and begin to use these tools to identify where are the gaps and how are you going to lose customers. We used to be able to, I guess you would say, talk to customers, talk at them, meaning as a marketer myself most of my life, you could run an ad with message points. You could put something on radio. You could go on television. But today, that's not available. You have got to be willing to be out there 24/7 and really engaging with your customers. They expect you to be there for them. And that's what you have got to deliver for them. So let's first talk about how you get started in enhancing your customer experiences and your customer edge. The first thing you do is you really want to benchmark where you are right now if you haven't already done that. So how do you do that? Well, simply you can Do a survey, right? Ask them. You can have feedback cards in your locations, or you can put it in with your product and service boxes and delivery. But one of the things that I really like to do is to ask customers to describe your business with just one word, just one. And then you and your team take a big piece of poster board or a big flip chart or whatever you want to do. And those words that come up most often, make those big and bold. The words that are not being used very often, those go in small print. Then I want you to look at the picture that's there. Is that really the visual of what you want your customers to see and think about your business? If it's not, then you've really got that disconnect. You've got that gap in the way you're delivering on your customer experience. And by the way, while you're doing this, you need to get a sense of your employee satisfaction too. You know what they say, happy employees, happy customers. And I'm sure you've all seen it. I mean, I've gone into places where you can just tell somebody just absolutely loves their job. And then you go into places where you feel like the person's like doing you a big favor just to talk to you. You know, I fly frequently because I do a lot of speaking, and I typically get upgraded. And I was on American Airlines in a flight not too long ago, and the flight attendants were right in front of me, congregated in the gallery, and all complaining about how horrible the company was, how horrible management was, how horrible their work conditions were. Do you think me, the customer, wanted to hear all that? They weren't paying any attention to us. All they wanted to do was complain. And so now when I fly American Airlines, or really any other airline for that matter, if I see a smiling, friendly flight attendant or a happy gate agent, I thank them and I make sure I praise them for that service. You know what we sometimes forget with our teams is it's really the customer who's paying our salaries. It's not the ownership, it's not management. It's the customers who pay our salaries. And with those customers, guess what? Nobody gets paid. The business goes down, and before you know it, you've either got a very small, poor business or you're out of business. So I'm going to go back to what Don Draper said again. The day you get a customer is the day you start to lose it. Now, that's important for another reason, because you know that it costs more to get a new customer than it does to keep one. And what I'd like for you to do is think about your business, no matter if you're a large company or in a smaller company. Let me ask you if you know what the long-term value is of your customer. The acronym for that is LTV. And don't be embarrassed if you don't, because I tell you, I have worked with major brands and I have asked them what the LTV of their customer base is, and they couldn't tell me. But it's important to know so you understand how valuable those customers are. Now, your LTV is measured quite simply. It's the net profit of each of the sale you make to one of your customers. It's the number of sales you make to that customer. And it's the number of years that customer continues to doing business with you. That's how you value the lifetime value of your customer. So when you're looking at improving your customer experience and getting that edge, you need to drill down and say, are we really retaining these customers? What's the lifetime value? Or do we have a rotating door? And if we do, why is that? And you may find out in this analysis that you really need to cut the dead weight. I mentioned that earlier. Get rid of some of those customers. Yes, I'm saying fire some of those customers. If you're going to have that edge, you're going to be innovative, you're going to create those competitive advantages. You don't want to be bogged down with unprofitable or bad customers. Now, no one wants to do that, quite honestly. I mean, the number of times I've done it in my life, I could probably count on one hand. But sometimes it's absolutely the necessary thing to do. So let me just talk about some of those things. First of all, let's say you've got an extremely overly demanding customer who sucks the life out of your team, who sucks up your bandwidth and keeping you from servicing those better customers. What happens? You know what? That better customer feels neglected. And as soon as they get a chance, they're going to be walking out the door. So sometimes those overly demanding customers who are, as I said, sucking the wind out of your team are the ones that you need to say goodbye to. There's also those disruptive customers, and this is really important because these are the people who are hostile and disrespectful to your employees, or they ignore certain personal boundaries, or maybe they try to do things that are dishonest. That causes a great deal of negativity in your business. It compromises, quite honestly, not only your team morale, but your entire company brand. So another type of customer that you need to get rid of, cut that dead weight. And then there's the late paying customer. I can't tell you how many small business owners I've worked with who have dealt with people who just keep making excuses, they don't pay their bills, or maybe the business owner doesn't feel comfortable calling them up and saying, hey, where's my money? But you know what? You're not in business to be a bank. There are banks that loan money, and you don't need to do that. Now, I realize, something could happen. A hurricane could come along and everything shut down, right? But there are some reasons that legitimately somebody might be late. But if it's a constant drain on your cash flow, impacting your profitability, impacting the way that you can grow your business, once again, it's time to say bye-bye. Now, as you're looking at maintaining this customer experience and creating this edge, the key now is, as in the title of my book, remaining relevant. You've got to stay relevant to your customers, and things are changing rapidly. You might have friends, I know I do, who have bio pictures that look like they were their high school yearbook picture. Take a look at everything in your business. Is it up to date? Is it fresh? Is it delivering the image that you want? You realize demographics are changing. And while baby boomers used to be the primary group or age part of the marketplace, we're outnumbered by those millennials now. So are you still your grandparents' brand? I mean, just think about it. Cadillac. A couple of years ago, I bought a Cadillac Escalade, and they had changed their logo. If you might remember, the Cadillac was a crest surrounded with sort of a wreath. Well, they realized that now the demographics are getting younger and younger and younger, but Cadillac was branded as their grandfather's car. And who wants that? So they updated their logo. They started updating their marketing to attract a younger market group. You've got to watch those demographics and stay relevant to your customer base. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You obviously want it to continue to service that core customer, but you got to look what's coming down the road. Another issue for the customer edge is diversity. If you look at what's happening now, it won't be long until minorities are a bigger group than white Caucasians. Are you positioned to manage diversity to remain relevant in the marketplace? And can you provide that right customer experience? You also need to make sure that your employees are really, really well trained. And I'm going to tell you a personal story, and you're not going to believe this one. But I took over a lease, actually. My friend bought a Mercedes SUV, and she had it 2 months. She didn't like it. So I'm not much of a car shopper. So I decided I'd just take over a lease. So I decided I didn't want to pay a month-to-month payment. So I wrote a check for the remainder of the lease for the 2 years and whatever months. Well, I sent it in. It took forever for them to process. Make a long story short, I threw them so far for a loop that it took months to try to get this figured out. And I was very frustrated. But what I realized was that in all kinds of situations, especially in today's complex economy, there are always going to be exceptions. And if your employees are still in the old paradigm of delivering customer service, which is let's follow it by the book and mark it off, you're not going to be delivering a good customer experience. And I have to say, I like the car, but I was so disappointed in the quality of service that I'll never buy another one again. So you've got to give the employees the authority to understand how to deal with those exceptions, to get complex situations done. Because a lot of people are taking care of things online. So by the time they get to a real live person, the situation has escalated and they want to get it resolved. And, there's a great story too, by talking about giving employees authority. It's about Nordstrom. A Nordstrom store opened up in Alaska. And it used to be the location, or was in the location, a tire store used to be. And this gentleman comes in with 2 tires, and he said, I want to return these. The clerk looked at the tires. There was a price tag on them. She reached in the cash drawer. She gave him $145, I think, and took the tires. Now, that kind of customer service is obviously very rare, but that showed that employee had the ability and the authority to handle the situation in the way he or she thought was the best way to handle it. Of course, handling those kinds of complaints and delivering good customer experience is now really further enhanced by the use of social media. Everybody's using social media. In fact, the Harvard Business Review ran an article with a headline, "Your company should be helping customers on social." And I think that really sums it up. It's a great way to engage, to build loyalty, to get your message out there, to build rapport, but it's also a great way to listen to the marketplace. What needs are being unmet? What are your customers saying? You can listen to see what they're saying about your competitors. You can listen to see if there is a problem. The first thing I do, I have to admit, when I have a problem, I go to Twitter. And I really am amazed how some companies are on top of it like white on rice, and other ones lag behind. And people want answers in real time, as I said. They want to be noticed. So there was another survey, the J.D. Power and Associates 2013 social media benchmark study found 67% of customers have used at some point in time a company's social media channels. A lot of big companies even have special customer service handles for their customers to use to get problems resolved. And the great thing is, remember at the beginning I said 79% of people will walk away after a bad customer service experience within a week. Imagine capturing that in real time, connecting with that customer, engaging with that customer, and resolving that issue. And if you've been in business for a while, I think you know that once you resolve a customer problem satisfactorily, a lot of times they become one of your most loyal customers. So it gives a real foot up and a real edge if a company is doing it correctly. It's also a great way to make that customer feel like a huge VIP. For example, one of my friends was going to a great resort in California, and she tweeted out that she was really excited about going to their spa. The resort tweeted back immediately and said, "Would you like us to make some of those appointments for you in advance?" Can you imagine? I mean, how that made her feel? That VIP, that engagement, that I'm not just a number out here. I didn't just call up and sit on the phone. This company, this brand is actually listening to me. So social media platforms provide a lot of great information and ways to connect and deliver customer experience for businesses and brands, regardless of your size. The key is doing it well and paying attention. And when we get to the series on the marketing edge, I'm going to be talking more about how to mine that social media data so that you can make more strategic business decisions down the road. Now, I know I've covered a lot of ground here, and I just want to mention one more thing. As much technology and data and everything that we have today to run our businesses, it's the little things that still matter. It's like a warm smile when somebody comes in. It's writing a thank you note, a handwritten thank you note. Now, when I was working on my marketing chapter, I put out on Facebook, like, who do you think is the best, customer experience? And Yeah, I got all the usual things, like I said, Nordstrom's and Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons, places that I would expect. But one I didn't expect, it was Chewy.com. You can buy dog stuff, right? Or stuff for your pets. And when you register with Chewy and make your first purchase, you get a handwritten thank you note. Who does that anymore? It's an amazing way for people to feel special. Remembering people's birthdays and anniversaries. And as I call it, lagniappe. Lagniappe, back in the days in New Orleans, when street merchants would line up, they would always give a customer lagniappe. Lagniappe is that one extra special thing that you didn't expect. So it makes that customer feel like a VIP. I'm sure you maybe have your favorite restaurant. When you go in, sometimes the owner or the manager comes over and says, you know what, you're such a great customer. Here, dessert's on us tonight. Makes you feel great. You want to go back. So all of these things are important in really, really building that customer experience. And I've talked a lot, but I know I've got some questions that were sent in beforehand, and I'm happy to answer any questions from you all as well. So let's take some questions here. I love this question because it fit in just beautifully. Someone sent in and asked me, how do I develop and build customer experience when I'm in a new area with a fairly new product? Great question, right? You got to get somebody to try it. I call it that experience. So there are a couple of things. I mean, we were just talking about social media. That's the obvious one. But I always say, give it away. If somebody can try it, experience it, guess what? They're going to go back. They're going to want to buy it. So I remember a friend of mine started a company called Candy Bouquet. It's sort of, you might have seen, they have businesses all over, and it's a franchise. And so it's bouquets made out of candy. And she started it, and she started trying to get it out there, and it was a new idea, right? So how do you build that concept? And what she did was she would make up candy bouquets. She would go to local businesses, and she would hand out those candy bouquets. And then she started getting orders. And then she would sign companies up to make sure they were delivered for service anniversaries or birthdays. And it built and built and built until she became one of the fastest growing franchises, I believe, in the world, but certainly in the country. And then she sold the business. But give it away. Let people try it. You see people standing, outside of restaurants. Here, try a bite of our yogurt or our whatever tea. They want you to try it. And now you might be saying, well, Susan, that works for you, maybe, but or in those kinds of retail settings. But what about a service business? The same thing. I've never been afraid to say to somebody, why don't we do this little project? Nothing big, but let them get a sense of how it is to work with you. Do you click? Do you have the same ideas? Does everything come together well? If it all works, they've experienced you, they've had a good result, and guess what? You've now made your inroad into that new area and that new product. Okay, Leslie has a live question here.
Okay, can you hear me, Susan?
I actually can. Yes, hi, Leslie.
Okay. Wanted to say I'm a big fan and I love hearing you speak. And my question is, without a big budget, how can I determine what customers are really saying about my business?
So I think the best way to really determine that is sometimes just to ask. It's pretty simple. I think, we do rely a lot on surveys and things like that, but sometimes it's just nice to pick up the phone and say, hey, how are we doing? Are we, are things going well? Are you satisfied? Are there things we could do better? I mentioned American Airlines, and I was kind of down on them, but out of the blue one day, an American Airlines rep called me and just said, I want to know how we're doing with you. You fly a lot, you're a platinum member for life. And I'd actually had a bad experience like that week before. And she gave me like 10,000 frequent flyer points and $100 coupon. just because she took up the phone and asked. So that's one way. But I also am a huge believer in the social media platforms. And there are a lot of listening tools like TweetDeck where you can look for certain hashtags from your industry, use watch your competitors' handles, things like that you can pick up and get a sense of what people are thinking about you. And then, of course, the review sites, and I didn't even get into that, but sites like Yelp and some of those that are online. I mean, I always go and read those reviews and to see what people are saying about businesses. And I think it's a great way for any business owner to actually get a sense of what's going well. Because a lot of times, people will go on and put something on Yelp that you may not have even known about. It might be a great compliment, and it might not be such a good situation. But nonetheless, if it's something really nice, you have a chance to say thank you. If it's a bad situation, you have a chance, just like with using other social media, to rectify it. And once somebody sees that you respond to that customer and you take care of the matter in a timely fashion, they're gonna look at that response and realize that this is a good business. Did that answer your question, Leslie?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Are there other questions? Well, I want to tell you all, thank you again for joining me. It was great fun.
I actually have one more question.
Oh, sure, no problem. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. You said you should cut the dead weight, and that sometimes means firing a customer. As a small business owner, do I risk ruining my reputation if other businesses learn about this incident?
I think it's all in the matter of how you handle it. So if you just are gracious and say, you know what, I don't think we're a good fit. I don't think we are providing what you're looking for. You can make it feel like you're really doing them a service. You could even maybe recommend another company if you feel like doing that. So I think it's not unusual, but I will share this story. One of the young ladies I mentored, she was growing her business and doing pretty well, but she had a customer that just didn't want to pay what she should be paid. She was always giving him discounts, and it got to be very, very frustrating for her. And I said, just part ways. And she said, well, I'm scared, and I understand that angst. You want those customers, but I do believe that once you let go, you're freed up mentally, you're freed up with your bandwidth, and then you're freed up to bring in better customers who are going to give you the business that you should have. And so she did follow my advice, and her business grew, like 25% that year. So it was a smart decision for her. Are there other questions? Well, I want to remind everybody, once again, my apologies for last week's webcast that we couldn't do because no power where I am in Florida. But our next one will be October the 19th. It's going to be the product and service edge. And it's going to be a fun one too, about how you can be innovative and build that innovation into your delivery of your product and service and development. So we're going to be talking about that. Of course, as I mentioned, the book is now available on Amazon for pre-orders. So I hope you'll take a sneak peek at that too. You can always connect with me on my website at susansolovic.com, on Facebook, facebook.com Susan Solovic, and Twitter, Susan Solovic. If I didn't get to any of your questions, there's one more here. Can I jump in and do this real quickly? Someone just asked, my question is on Yelp reviews. Do you know if you're able to take off bad reviews? You can take them off if you can prove that perhaps a competitor posted it, that it's extremely false. It's not an easy thing to do. The better thing to do would be to try to respond in a professional way and handle it that way. But if it's clearly someone who's just trying to hurt your business, like a competitor, then I would say you could certainly make an effort to try to do that. So anyway, so let me go back. So October 19th, mark your calendars, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I'll be putting this up too on YouTube, so you can watch it again if you want. And I hope you'll join me. I want to thank the sponsors again, the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council, the American Management Association, and Amacom Publishing for sponsoring these programs. And thanks to all of you for joining me. Thanks to GenieCast for their great, great, great technology. And we'll see you next time. Oh, and one more thing. I do have a new podcast series out too. It's called The 1% Edge. It's on iTunes and on iHeartRadio. We interview some thought leaders that really give you some insight on how to create a cutting edge, that innovation that every company needs. So until next month, I'll see you then.